Hi, I'm back for part two, I think like 2 or 3 weeks later. I also realized that I did lie, as I always do when it comes to books. I will have a fall book haul at some point because I just realized that I didn't factor in a stack of books that I wanted to show, so we'll just, wait a few months, collect a few more, and then show the books, and that's it. I told myself in 2026 and even before, no more books, so I have my pre-orders in already for the rest of the year. I should be good with not ordering books because I really need to get a crack on reading this year. I mean, I have been reading, but not as much as I usually typically do. But I want to remedy that before the start of the new year. Let's stop rambling. I have another little section of biographies that I found, so I'm going to get through those first, and then we can finish off with fiction books. So these are the memoirs that I want to work through. I have this one, which is Look Homeward Angel by Thomas Wolfe, and I actually watched a movie about Max Perkins, Thomas Wolfe, and Hemingway, and I don't remember the name of the movie, and I actually really enjoyed it, but I think it was called Genius, and it was referring to Thomas Wolfe. So he was like an American prodigy, and is this a spoiler? And he died young. Essentially, it's not a spoiler because this was a real person. And that movie was amazing, and it really made me think of the power of editors as well. So Max Perkins, he's one of the most famous editors of Genius, as they call. So I really wanted to read something by Thomas Wolfe to see what was the hype back in the 20s and 30s with this author and his books. And I also eventually at some point want to pick up a biography of Max Perkins. There's one I've been eyeing for a while, but every time I place the order online, somehow they never ship me that book. So I have to see if I can find it somewhere else. But yeah, that's why I picked this one up. Then I have this book, which is a movie as well, and it's been around for quite a few decades. And it's A Beautiful Mind by Sylvia Nassar. This is again a biography of a genius mathematician, and I think it has to do with schizophrenia as well. I'm really interested in reading the book and then watching the movie. The movie has a cast of very famous actors, which again I forgot who was playing. I place these orders and I will forget like little things here and there until I pick up the book or I go and consult my notes. So that's why I have no idea who the actors were in the movie, but it is a famous movie and it is a famous book, and I am really interested in reading it. This next book, I heard the Memoir talk on a podcast. It's the Memoir Nation podcast, and this is called The Manicurist's Daughter by Suzanne Liu. This is a typical American immigrant story and how the past is always shrouded until the immigrant daughter pokes at the past and tries to figure out what's going on. So here it says, an emotionally raw memoir about the crumbling of the American dream and a daughter of refugees who searches for answers after her mother dies during plastic surgery. So yeah, that's the tagline, and it's very fascinating. Listening to the author talk on Memoir Nation was really what prompted me to pick up this book. So I'm a little bit late to the game, but this was doing rounds when it first came out, and it's Didion and Babbitts by Lily Analik. And I've heard some great things and not so great things, but I do want to keep this for next summer. I typically pick up Eve Babbitts and Joan Didion in the summertime, so I want to work through some more of their works and books and then pick this one up and see for myself what I think. But yeah, if you read it, let me know. What are your thoughts and opinions? A lot of people are very divided on this book. Another memoir, one that is more closer to home or closer to me, is called The Outrun by Amy Liptrot. and this is about a recovering alcoholic, and she returns back home in the north of Scotland, and there's a movie with obviously Saoirse Ronan, and she's one of my favorite actresses, so I know that if she's part of a project, especially if it's adapted from a book, I know it's something that's really going to resonate with me, so I obviously had to pick this one up too. Okay, so now we're ready for some fiction and some literary fiction. So the first book I have here is by Hong Kong, and it's Greek Lessons, a novel. This is by the author of The Vegetarian. So it says here, in a classroom in Seoul, a young woman watches her Greek language teacher at the blackboard. She tries to speak but has lost her voice. Her teacher finds himself drawn to the silent woman, while day by day he is losing his sight. Soon the two discover that a deeper pain binds them together. For her, in the space of just a few months, she has lost both her mother and the custody battle for her 9-year-old son. For him, it's the pain of growing up between Korea and Germany, being torn between two cultures and languages, and the fear of losing his independence. Greek Lessons tells the story of two ordinary people brought together at a moment of private anguish, the fading light of a man losing his vision, meeting the silence of a woman who has lost her language. Yet these are the very things that draw them to each other. Slowly, the two discover a profound sense of unity, their voices intersecting with startling beauty as they move from darkness to light, from silence to breath and expression. Just the synopsis is so beautiful, so I know that this is going to be a transformative read. And then we're switching gears totally with this one, and it's called The Eyes Are the Best Parts by Monica Kim. And I think this is going to be a perfect book for the spooky season. And it says, crying in H Mart meets my sister's serial killer in this feminist psychological horror about the making of a serial killer from a Korean American perspective. I think that's enough said. If you're interested, go pick this one up. I've only heard great things about this one as well. Okay, this next book, let me know if you've ever heard of it. I've only heard one creator talk about this book, and I believe it is a translated work of fiction, and it's called Strangers I Know by Claudia Dustoranti, and I believe it's translated from the Italian. It just says translated by Elizabeth Harris. Okay, here it is. I'll tell you the description at the back. I would, but they cut off this part of the synopsis, so hold on, let me see if I can find something else here. From what I've gathered at the back here, it's a story about a strange family, so a young girl that has to recreate her mythology when she moves from southern Italy to New York City. I guess a lot of weird stuff is happening. Her household is estranged, and both of her parents are deaf, so there's this miscommunication within the sign language that is being used. Actually, Ocean One reviewed it, and The Observer compared it to Greta Gerwig's Lady Bird and Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own. So I think the premise is just going to be super interesting. I don't know why I sort of thought this was like a retelling of what's it called? The Haunting of Hill House, but I'm definitely wrong in that. But either way, this sounds like a totally good book, and I know I butchered the synopsis because I could not read it, but I'll leave the link to the book down below either way. The next book I got is called Paul by Daisy Lafarge, and it says here, Frances is an English graduate student bruised by a messy breakup. On the spur of the moment, she decides to volunteer at a farm in rural France with the hope that the change of scenery will help to clear her head. The farm, curiously named Noa Noa, is owned by Paul, an appealing, enigmatic Frenchman. Frances is charmed by his easygoing ways and by the area itself. Both welcome changes from the life she has known. Yet the more time she spends in Paul's world, the more unmoored she begins to feel. It isn't long before murmurings about Paul begin to surface, and she realizes how ill-equipped she is for the emotional battle of wills that is smoldering around her, one that threatens to silence and engulf her. This kind of reminds me a little bit of like Warrior by, I think the author's name was, oh, I see it here, Francesca Reese, and I've been looking for another book that's set in like rural France with like shady tension and emotional manipulation and whatnot. So I'm definitely going to be picking this one up next summer because I missed my mark this summer, but I'm really intrigued by this book. Then I got another lit fic book that has to do with themes of like breakup and miscommunication and whatnot, and it's called What It's Like in Words by Eliza Moss. And I believe I got this recommendation from Jack Edwards' channel. And it says here, Enola is approaching 30 and everything feels like a lot. The boxes aren't ticked and she remains adrift in a way she thought she would have beaten by now. She wants to be a writer but can't finish a first draft. She romanticizes her childhood but won't speak to her mother. She has never been in a serious relationship but yearns to be one half of a couple that goes to weddings and on holiday together. Enter the enigmatic writer. Enola falls in love and starts to dream about their perfect future. The wedding, the publishing deals, the house in the suburbs. But the reality is far from perfect. He's distant, but she's cool. She doesn't need to hear from him every day. He hangs out with his ex, but she's not insecure. Is she? He's moody and dark, but he's a creative and that's part of his process. Her best friend begs Enola to end it, but she can't. She might feel like she's going crazy at times, but she wants him. She needs him. She would die without him. That's what love is, isn't it? Enola spends the next 2 years on the verge of unraveling, culminating in turbulent 24 hours that forces her to reevaluate her understanding of love, family, friendship, and self-worth. So yeah, this book reminds me of quite a few books that is similar in premise, like Writers and Lovers, but every time I read one of these books, I eat it right up because sometimes what we want is a reflection of ourselves, and I will be the first to admit it. Then I got 2 books that are being turned into movies and that will be released before the end of the year, so I just need to read these 2 books. The first one is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This one is very similar to, in some way, The Martian. But I'll read you the back end just to clarify. It says Ryland Grace is the sole survivor on a desperate last chance mission, and if he fails, humanity and Earth itself will perish. Except that right now he doesn't know that. He can't even remember his own name, let alone the nature of his assignment or how to complete it. All he knows is that he's been asleep for a very long time, and he's just been awakened to find himself millions of miles from home with nothing but 2 corpses for company. His crewmates dead, his memories fuzzily returning. Ryland realizes that an impossible task now confronts him. Hurling through space on this tiny ship, he must puzzle out an impossible scientific mystery and conquer an extinction-level threat to our species. And with the clock ticking down and the nearest human being light years away, he's got to do it all alone. Or does he? Project Hail Mary is a tale of discovery, speculation, and survival to rival The Martian while taking us to places it never dreamed of going. And I believe that the main actor of the movie is Ryan Gosling, so I'm definitely going to pick this one up and watch the movie. And then there's this book that's also being adapted into a movie, and it's called The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I think a lot of people have already read a book by this author. This author, I believe, is a psychologist turned mystery thriller writer. If I'm not wrong, if I'm wrong, please correct me. But I think this adaptation features Sydney Sweeney and Amanda Seyfried. I'm really looking forward to the movie, so I will be reading this book. It says, every day I clean the Winchester's beautiful houses top to bottom. I pick up the daughter from school and I cook a delicious meal for the whole family before heading up to eat alone in my tiny room on the top floor. I try to ignore how Nina makes a mess just to watch me clean it up, how she tells strange lies about her own daughter, and how her husband, Andrew, seems more broken every day. As I look into Andrew's handsome brown eyes, so full of pain, it's hard not to imagine what it would be like to live Nina's life. The walk-in closet, the fancy car, the perfect husband. I try on one of Nina's pristine white dresses once, just to see what it's like, but she soon finds out, and by the time I realize my attic bedroom door only locks from the outside, it's far too late. I just feel like this might be one of those books that have a lot of twists and turns, and I haven't read one of these books in a while. Like, there was The Girl on the Train, and there's also books by Gillian Flynn, who is, I think, like the best, like the master of this type of genre. But I am willing to give a chance to Frida McFadden because a lot of people seem to love her and eat up all her books, and I think she has a lot of these books out, so if I like this, I might be tempted to pick something else up by her. I just needed a cup of tea. So now I want to head more into like dark academia / gothic type books. I think I have about like 6 of them, so we'll get through those and then I'll finish off with whatever I have left. I know there's a lot of books, but we'll get through them. First book I have here is The Four by Ellie Keel. Very academic. It says, "We were always the four from our very first day at High Realms. The four scholarship pupils, outsiders in a world of power and privilege. It would have made our lives a lot easier if Marta had simply pushed Genevieve out of our bedroom window that day. Certainly it would have been tragic. She would have died instantly, but Marta didn't push her then, or if you choose to believe me, at any other time. If she had, all of that we went through would not have happened. I've told this story as clearly as I could, as rationally as I've been able, in the circumstances to achieve. I don't regret what we did, and I would do it all again." This kind of like reminds me of The Secret History. Obviously, every book in Dark Academia is compared to The Secret History. I know I'm trying not to do that, but it also reminds me a bit of like Elite. I don't know if you guys ever watched that Spanish Netflix show that was really popular for a few years, with the fact that these are scholarship kids. But yeah, I'm still willing to pick it up because I just love Dark Academia so much and I love every take on it, so yeah, I'm guilty as charged. And then I got this book by Emma Torres, and it's Inkblood Sister Scribe. This one I heard to be really phenomenal, a phenomenal Dark Academia book. So here it says, "For generations, the Calaute family has guarded a collection of ancient and rare books. Books that let person walk through walls or manipulate the elements. Books of magic that half-sisters Joanna and Esther have been raised to revere and protect. All magic comes with a price though, and for years the sisters have been separated. Esther has fled to a remote base in Antarctica to escape the fate that killed her own mother, and Joanna's isolated herself in their family home in Vermont, devoting her life to the study of these cherished volumes. But after their father dies suddenly while reading a book Joanna has never seen before, the sisters must reunite to preserve their family legacy. In the process, they'll uncover a world of magic far bigger and more dangerous than they had ever imagined. And all the secrets their parents kept hidden, secrets that span centuries, continents, and even other libraries." So I love books that have to do with books. It kind of reminds me of, what's it called? The book series that I absolutely love, and I'm like blanking. What's going on with my memory today? Oh my god, the one with the vampire and the witch. A Discovery of Witches. It kind of reminds me of that. And another book that I recently read and I really loved, and it's called The Cloisters. So if it's anything like those two books or like a mash of those two books, I know I'm gonna really enjoy this one. Then I have this book. It's called The Turnglass by Garrett Rubin. The cover is really cool. It's like this and then like this. And let's read the inside flap. It says, "The immersive crime story is a tête bêche novel, two intertwined tales printed back to back. At the book's core are separate mysteries running across different timelines that are inextricably and forever linked. Essex, England, 1881. Dr. Simeon Lee comes from London to treat his ailing relative Parson Oliver Hayes at a remote Turnglass house. Hawes believes he's being poisoned by his sister-in-law Florence, who was declared mad after killing her husband, Hawes' brother, in a jealous rage. Hawes now keeps her locked in a glass-walled apartment in the library. The secret as to how she came to be there is found in his tête bêche journal, where one side tells a very different story from the other. Flip the book cover head to tail and read the second story in the opposite direction, or read in both directions at once, alternating chapters." That's a really cool premise for a book, by the way. Los Angeles, California, 1939. Noted author Oliver Toke, the governor's son, is found dead by apparent suicide, but his friend Ken Kurian suspects foul play. After he finds a link between Toke's death and the mysterious kidnapping of Toke's brother when they were children, Kurian must decipher the clues hidden in Toke's final book, a tête bêche novel called The Turnglass, about a young doctor named Simeon Lee. So I love interconnected stories like that. Some of my books have interconnected parts that are kind of complex as well. So I love to read other books that have done it before and successfully done it. So I'm hoping that this one will click like a puzzle piece and that it will help me craft in some way my own story and see how other authors have done it before. So if you have any stories that are similar like this, please let me know, because I just love the concept of a story working together in two parts. The next book I have here is called The Resurrectionist, and it's by A. Ray Dunlop, and it says here, "Portrait of the medical student as a young body snatcher. Yet I must insist that in the end, this is not a story about death. It is perhaps a life story, or even, yes, a love story. It is the story of how I clawed my way from the decay of a crumbling legacy into the modern era of reason and science. It is the story of how I escaped the prison of archaic superstition to the freedom of enlightenment. It is the story of how a rose can blossom from even the bloodiest soil, of how light can grow from shadow, how love can grow from despair. This, dear reader, is the story of my resurrection. I just love stories about resurrecting. Like, this is giving Frankenstein in some ways. I love that crossroad between superstition, medical science, and science, experimenting when it all comes together. So I'm definitely going to pick this one up this season. Another interesting book that I picked up is called Havoc by Christopher Bolin, and this has been reviewed by many of my favorite authors, including Mona Awad. So I'll read you the synopsis. It says, at the Royal Karnak Palace Hotel under the hot Saharan sun, Maggie Burkhart has a comfortable suite, a loyal confidant in the hotel manager Ahmed, and a handful of sympathetic friends, other long-termers like herself, who understand her deep grief for her late husband Peter. In this luxury hotel on the banks of the Nile, Maggie is merely the sweet old lady in room 309. Maggie has come to the Royal Karnak to escape, but not in quite the same way as most other guests who are staying here during the waning days of the pandemic. A compulsive meddler, Maggie may have found herself in hot water at her last hotel in Switzerland, and she just might have needed to get out of the country fast, but all that's behind her. That is until one morning when she notices a new arrival at check-in, a somber, young American woman named Tess and her impish 8-year-old son, Otto. Eager to help, Maggie invites them into her world. Soon, Maggie realizes that in her longing to be a part of their family, she has let in a cunning enemy who might lead her to her undoing. In scrawny Otto, Maggie Burkhart has finally met her match. Havoc is brilliant, twisty psychological suspense that will get under your skin like the most unforgettable Hitchcock classics. I just love the setting of this book. I love that it's set in a hotel. I love that there's also the backdrop of the pandemic, and I'm really interested in seeing how this older lady has met her match in a 8-year-old boy that's about to take her down. So yeah, it's a very short book, so I might be tempted to read it this season as well. I got The Seventh Veil of Salome by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I just remember that this is like set in Golden Age Hollywood, a city overflowing with gossip, scandal, and intrigue. Every actress wants to play Salome, the star-making role in a big-budget movie about the legendary temptress. So when the film's mercurial director casts Vera Larios, an unknown Mexican ingenue, in the lead role, she quickly becomes the talk of the town. Vera also becomes an object of envy for Nancy Hartley, a big player whose career has stalled and who will do anything to win the fame she believes she richly deserves. As Vera navigates the glitz and the gilded glamour of her new city, Nancy follows silently behind, trying to take everything she believes Vera has been unfairly handed. But this is the tale of 3 women, for it is also the story of the Princess Salome herself. Consumed with desire for the fiery prophet who foretells the doom of her stepfather, Salome is a woman torn between the decree of duty and the yearning of her heart, and tragedy is waiting in the wings for all 3 women. This just sounds like a fascinating tale. I love when books interconnect many women in their lives and like history, so I am very, very, very much interested in reading this at some point. Then I got 2 books that were part of the Booker Prize at some point. I mean, they haven't won, but they were part of the list. So I have this one that was in the 2021 Booker Prize, and it's No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. A lot of people had been reading this back in 2021, and I always kept my eye out for a copy, so I finally bought one, and it says, a profound modern meditation on love, language, and human connection. A woman known for her viral social media posts travels the world speaking to her adoring fans. She is overwhelmed by navigating the new language and etiquette of what she terms the portal, where she grapples with an unshakable conviction that a vast chorus of voices is now dictating her thoughts. Suddenly, 2 texts from her mother pierce the fray. Something has gone wrong, and how soon can you get here? As real life and its stakes collide with the increasing absurd antics of the portal, the woman confronts a world that seems to contain an abundance of goodness, empathy, and justice, and a deluge of evidence to the contrary. This is one of those social media novels, I believe, and I'm really interested in picking it up. I also got this one, which is Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner, and I'll quickly read the dust jacket here. It says, Creation Lake is a novel about a secret agent, a 34-year-old American woman of ruthless tactics and clean beauty who is sent to do dirty work in France. Sadie Smith is how the narrator introduces herself to the rural commune of French subversives on who she is keeping tabs, and to her lover Lucien, a young and well-born Parisian she has met by a cold bump, making him believe the encounter was accidental. Like everyone she targets, Lucien is useful to her and used by her. Sadie operates by strategy and dissimulation based on what her contacts, shadowy figures in business and government, instruct. First, these contacts want her to incite provocation. Then they want more. In this region of old farms and prehistoric caves, Sadie becomes entranced by a mysterious figure named Bruno Lacombe, a mentor to the young activist who believes that the path to emancipation is not revolt but a return to the ancient past. Just as Sadie is certain that she's the seductress and puppet master of those she surveils, Bruno is seducing her with his ingenious counter-histories, his artful laments, his own tragic story. So this is like a crime noir type of novel, and I love that it's set in France as well. I'm kind of intrigued to seeing what this story is about because it's also been blurred by George Saunders and many great authors here, but also I haven't heard a premise like this in a while. Not one that's like usually typical of novels. Usually you watch movies like this, so I want to see how a literary fiction take on this type of genre, crime noir genre. Maybe there is a bigger literary canon in this section, but that's not one that I typically read. I just typically watch those type of movies. So yeah, I'm interested in seeing what I think and maybe picking up more. I also have a few more books here. I'm almost done, I promise. I have these 3 books, and these all are to do with like modern topics and whatnot. So first one I got is Margot's Got Money Trouble by Ruthie Thorpe, and I've only heard great things about this one. It says, as the child of a Hooters waitress and an ex-pro wrestler, Margot Millet's always known she'd have to make it on her own, so she enrolls at her local junior college, even though she can't imagine how she'll ever make a living. She's still figuring things out and never planned to have an affair with her English professor, and while their affair is brief, it isn't brief enough to keep her from getting pregnant. Despite everyone's advice, she decides to keep the baby, mostly out of naivete and a yearning for something bigger. Now at 20, Margot is alone with an infant, unemployed, and on the verge of eviction. She needs a cash infusion fast. When her estranged father Jinx shows up on her doorstep and asks to move in with her, she agrees in exchange for help with childcare. Then Margot begins to form a plan. She'll start an OnlyFans as an experiment. She soon finds herself adapting some of Jinx's advice from the world of wrestling, like how to craft a compelling character and make your audience fall in love with you. Before she knows it, she's turned into a runaway success. Could this be the answer to all of Margot's problem? Or does internet fame come with too high a price? Okay, so this one is very interesting. It's also blurred by Emma Straub, which I've read some of her books before, and Stephanie Danler, which is one of my favorite authors, but she has not been really publishing or writing in the last like 4 or 5 years, so I don't know if that still stands, but I loved her 2 previous works, so I just know that this is going to be something I enjoy, or like at least am intrigued by while reading. I also have this book. It's by an Iranian author. It's called Liquid, a Love Story by Miriam Rahmani, and let me read you the blurb. The unnamed narrator of Liquid has always believed herself to be the smartest person in the room, and from an early age, she and her best friend Adam have turned up their noses at other people's riches. But as her career slows, she seems no closer to the middle-class comfort promised to her by the prestige of her education and the successes of her immigrant parents. Jokingly, Adam suggests she just marry rich. Taking this challenge seriously, she makes a spreadsheet and outlines a goal: 100 dates with rich Angelonians, like people from Los Angeles. I don't know how to say that word. Angelonos, with a marriage proposal in hand by autumn. What follows is a whirlwind summer, martinis Saint Vermouth with the lazy scion of a construction empire, board games with a butch producer who owns the house in the hills, and an evening spent dodging the halitosis of a maxillofacial surgeon from Orange County. Only an emergency that takes her to Tehran and an overdue familiar reckoning can alter her increasingly manic trajectory and force her to confront the contradictions of her life. As doubts begin to creep in about her marriage project, it suddenly seems possible that the eligible prospect she's been looking for has been under her nose the entire time. I love the premise. It's very Iranian in itself, so I'm definitely gonna pick this one next summer. The next book I got is called Deep Cuts by Holly Brickley. It says here, a love story about two people pulled apart by the same force that draws them together, music. It's a Friday night in a campus bar in Berkeley, fall of 2000, and Percy Marks is pontificating about music again. Hall & Oates is on the jukebox, and Percy, who has no talent for music, just lots of opinion about it, can't stop herself from over-analyzing the song, indulging what she knows to be her most annoying habit. But something is different tonight. The guy beside her at the bar, fellow student Joe Morrow, is a songwriter, and he could listen to Percy talk all night. Joe asks Percy for feedback of one of his songs, and the results kick off a partnership that will span years, ignite new passions in them both, and set Joe on a path to an indie rock stardom. But it also bruises Joe's ego and traps Percy in a role she resents. How long can Percy ignore the roars of her heart and of her own unique talent to protect their thrilling collaboration? Moving from Brooklyn bars to San Francisco dance floors, Deep Cuts examines the nature of talent, obsession, belonging, and above all, our need to be heard. I heard really great things about this book when it first came out, so I am definitely interested in picking it up once I'm feeling into that mood of reading fiction books about music, because there have been quite a few lately. Where was I? I got a phone call from HR. And then I forgot where I was. So I think we're down to one book. Yes. And it's this one. It's In Our Time, Stories by Ernest Hemingway. I kind of want to read Ernest Hemingway in chronological order, if that makes sense. And yeah. I'm so frazzled-dazzled from that call. So I don't even know how to end this anymore. I just want to read and write books for a living. Like, release me from this obligation that's called work. Anyway, so yeah, that was it. That was the big, enormous haul. Thankful for my job because that's how I got to afford this haul. Thank you very much. But yeah, that's it. That's the end. I'll see you again in fall time where I'll present to you more amazing books, and I will come back eventually and talk about the books that I've read and the books that I want to read next. I've just been so busy and so flustered, so that's that. And yeah, let me know if you've read any of these books. Let me know if you've discovered any new books, because there's some books that are a bit more niche, and I would love to hear what you're reading, what you're working on, what you're writing, and I'll see you on the next bookish video. Bye!